Welcome to the You on the Camino de Santiago podcast, Season 4. This podcast is for and about people getting ready for their first ever pilgrimage on the Camino de Santiago in Spain, France, and Portugal. With your host, Camino guide and longtime pilgrim, Nancy Reynolds of the Camino Experience. Hey pilgrims, I hope you are ready to be inspired today. I hope you're ready to take a good long look at anything that is stopping you from walking the Camino, and then, kindly, gently, ask those barriers to step aside so you can go make this pilgrimage. Hi, this is Nancy. My guest today is Nysie, who is, as this episode releases, about a week away from taking her first steps on the Chemin de Saint-Jacques in France. That's the Way of St. James in French, by the way. Nysie's starting point is not Saint-Jean-Pied-de-Port, where so many pilgrims start their journeys. Rather, she is starting in Le Puy-en-Velay, which adds an additional 750 kilometers to the journey to Santiago de Compostela. Nysie knows ahead of time that she won't be walking every step of the way, but that fact doesn't make this any less remarkable. You'll see why I say that as you get to know Nysie and her story, which is nothing short of a miracle. This is a story of second chances and of doing what you can while you can do it. This may just be your call to action, regardless of what you are up against. You may have reasons why you can't or won't walk the Camino, but Nysie may inspire you to get rid of any of those reasons that are really just low-level excuses. We will be doing a couple of mini Spanish lessons in this episode for some of those hard-to-pronounce place names. So while I'm at it, I want to refer you back to the episode I did in Season 2 with Spanish teacher Maria Seco from Pontevedra on the Camino Portugués. We walked through the entire Francés route and shared how to pronounce all the difficult place names in both Spanish and in American accented Spanish. That was Season 2, Episode 10, and I have the link for you in the show notes. Before we say hello to Nysie, let me be sure you know that I am leading a group of first-time pilgrims on the Camino Francés route starting in Saint-Jean-Pied-de-Port in September, and I still have a few spots left in that group. If you are someone who can imagine yourself on the Camino, but you can't yet see how to make it happen, you don't know how to go from the dream to those first steps on the trail, this group is for you. Or if you are planning to walk the Camino alone, but you don't necessarily want to start alone, then this group is for you too. Imagine heading off from your home on your own with the knowledge that a small group of people who you already know, because you've been meeting with them on Zoom for the past few months, will be there when you arrive and will share the start of the journey with you, at least for the first 4 days on the trail. Imagine having an experienced resource to answer all your getting started questions for the next 6 months, and then having that resource with you on the trail as you find your rhythm and settle into your pilgrim identity. I'm that resource, by the way. I'll be your guide when you join this group for September. If you are ready to say yes to your Camino dream and not have to jump into this pilgrimage alone, let's talk. You can email me at nancy@thecaminoexperience.com or follow the link in the show notes to let me know you'd like to connect. Okay, my friends, are you ready to meet Nysie? Here we go. Nysie, hi. Thank you so much for being with me today on the podcast.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here, and it's a pleasure, and I'm excited to actually finally meet you.
I know. I've been seeing your emails in my inbox for a while now, and when I first read your story, I was so taken with it. and so I'm going to say impressed by your resiliency and by your determination. And so I'm eager for your story to unfold so listeners can get to know you and be inspired. I think they're going to be inspired by your story.
Well, thank you. That is very kind of you to say.
And not to put any pressure on you.
No, no pressure.
No pressure at all. No, I think
No
it's going to
pressure.
unfold nicely so we can get to know
Yes.
you a little bit. Yeah. So I want to start where I always start, which is to put the pin in the map. So my listeners know which route you'll be walking, where you're starting, where you're
Mhm.
ending, and how long you'll be out there. So will you go ahead and put the pin in the map for us?
I would love to take that pin, put it in the map. And my pin will be at Le Puy, France. It is part of an old Camino route in France, and it meets up with the St. Francis. The one in France, I believe, is called the Chemin S8. No, excuse me, Chemin. La Chemin. I don't know if I said that right, but
I say Chemin, but I don't know that
Chemin. Okay.
Chemin. I don't know that that's accurate, but anyone who's listening who speaks French is going, stop, just stop. So,
Well, yours sounds much more fancy than mine does.
all right. So Chemin something.
So I'll be starting in Le Puy, and it will connect with Saint Jean de Pau.
That's another hard one. So this is the closest I can get. Saint-Jean-Pied-du-Port.
Saint Jean Pied de Pau.
Good.
Thank you. It connects in that city with the Francis,
Yes.
and I'll go up and over the Pyrenees, and then all the way to Santiago, and then I will go all the way to Finisterre.
Okay, hold on a second though. From Le Puy to Saint-Jean, how far is that?
That's what's kind of interesting about my route. And because of my situation, there will be sections that I will skip
Okay.
to save what I term my energy spoons,
Mm.
because I only have so many a day, so many a week. And so, and I can explain why that is in a minute.
We'll get your whole story on that for sure.
Right. And so, and I'll also skip, well, not skip, I will take a different way. I'll take the train through the Mesta.
Okay.
And then from that, I will stop in, I will stop like right after the Mesta in that mountain range.
Okay. It's called the Meseta.
Meseta. Thank you.
Meseta. Yeah.
Meseta. I hope I'm not the only one that you're like, okay, edit that, edit that.
Not even close.
Okay.
Yeah. No, these Spanish words really trip us up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's just say it's a completely foreign language,
Yes. Yes.
foreign to us.
And that's meseta.
Meseta. Yeah.
Meseta.
The gift of Spanish is that they pronounce every single vowel. They pronounce them all. So meseta is Meseta, meseta, meseta,
Meseta.
meseta.
Meseta. I got
Yeah.
it.
So,
Thank you.
and it's just for me, that makes it so much easier. French is more difficult for me because, like, chemin, what, the N, you don't get to pronounce the N.
That's probably why I didn't do very well in French in high school, because I always wanted to pronounce that last letter. And it's so ingrained in our English language,
That's right.
especially, well, and you would think I would pick it up because I'm from the South, and we've got the drawl, but
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Where in the South are you from, Nysie?
I grew up in Georgia.
Hey.
Yep.
All right. Shout out to all the Georgians then.
Yep.
Okay. So back to the Camino. So you're going to walk from the Puy to Saint-Jean-Pied-du-Port and you'll skip some sections. But I love how you said that. You're not actually skipping. They're just parts that you won't walk, but you are still covering the same kilometers. You're still making the entire journey from Le Puy to Saint-Jean and on to Santiago. Whether or not you walk every step is not really what we're talking about here. We're talking about making the entire journey.
Yes. And alone. Because this woman who wrote this book, Walking to the End of the World, she went from Le Puy all the way to the coast. Okay. And so it's around 1,000 miles.
Wow. And that inspired you? Her story inspired you?
Well, can we back up? Can we back up to like 30 years ago?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's get your story.
So, gosh, I was probably like 2021. And I fell madly in love. A boy.
Madly in love with a boy. Oh,
with a boy.
I love love.
And I actually was living overseas, and I had my first exacerbation for multiple sclerosis, but we didn't know because it was very difficult to diagnose.
Okay.
And so I had to leave to come home. And so he gave me a book to help me with my new journey of having to leave school because I was going to school overseas. And it was Paulo Coelho.
That's a hard one too. Paulo Coelho is how the American mouth pronounces it.
Yeah, Coelho. I really did practice this for 5 minutes, I promise you. So and it was The Alchemist.
Yeah. Oh, it's a great story.
Oh, I love that book. And I fell in love with him. I fell in love with his stories. I fell in love with his writing. And I was just doing everything possible to try and find every book that he wrote. And I came across The Pilgrimage, which was his journey on the Francis, his own spiritual pilgrimage. And as soon as I read it, it just resonated with me.
The Pilgrimage, that book, I read that one too. So that's the one that put you in the mind of walking the Camino the first time?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it did. And I've always been a spiritual person, and I've always been searching and knowing that part of that searching, I would always be searching because that's what I believe to be the human nature. It's to always be searching for meaning. And I knew when I read that book that this is part of my journey. I'm supposed to do this. So, it's kind of in the back of my head, but I'm young and interested in other things, so I sort of forget about it. And then I'm in Europe with my dad and his wife for her daughter's wedding. Her ancestors came from the northern part of Spain. And her very feisty Nana, her mom, wanted to travel along that northern route to see where her ancestors came from, because I think it was her grandfather or great grandfather, I can't remember, that donated a Christ to one of these small little villages.
Oh.
So it was a really beautiful trip, and we're driving along, and we've stopped at different places. And all of a sudden we're driving along. There's all these people going by, and we're all looking at them like, what is this? What's going on? And we're like, oh, it just must be a group of people out walking. And you drive, another mile, and there's another, there's a whole bunch of more groups of people walking. And all of a sudden it clicked. Like, oh my God, this is the Camino.
Oh.
I, of course, starts like, oh my goodness,
screaming,
oh my goodness.
Right?
I was totally. And my dad and his ex-wife were like, what is wrong with you? I said, you don't understand. This is the Camino.
Okay, so what was it? Do you remember what was it about the Camino that even back then was calling you so clearly? Why the excitement?
I'm pausing so I can collect my thoughts.
Yeah, take your time.
the journey. It wasn't the destination. It wasn't come to Santiago and you will have your pilgrimage. It was the process, and the process of total, excitement or trepidation, and that evolution of self going through hardship. And then, you're in the valley and then you come out on the mountain to see this beautiful vista, and something inherently changes in individuals, I feel like. Yeah. And I felt like that part of my whole journey as a human, and to be a better person, to be better at community, to be better at opening myself up to others and being quiet to let them talk and I listen. I felt like the Camino, I don't know, it's hard for me to put a pin in that part.
I think you just did.
Okay, great.
I do. I think you just did. Yes. And I think that your time horizon was what? That was 30 years ago?
Yes.
And you're walking the Camino this year. And for some people, it is a 30-year time horizon. And for others, it's a 30-day.
Right. Yes.
And even still, regardless of if it's 30 years or 30 days, I think you just nailed it.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that. That's touching.
Let's go back 30 years because what I know of your story, and I want to invite you to share as much of it as you're comfortable sharing. When you just described the hardship of a journey like that, of going through the valley and then up to the mountaintop, from what I know of your story, even though it wasn't physically on the Camino route, that's exactly what you've been doing.
Yes.
Hardship through the valley up to the mountaintop.
Yes. All through that period of my 20s and my 30s, I always had something physically off, either a weakness in my muscles or really tired, and nobody could really tell me what was going on. And then my husband and I and our 4-year-old daughter at the time felt like it was time for an adventure. So we drove across country and drove up to Alaska and lived in Alaska. And I taught science, and Adrian did his thing, and we were very happy, and we met some amazing people. The people in Alaska, it's like the Camino in a state. They just take care of each other. It's really quite amazing and humbling. But then all of a sudden something happened and I couldn't feel the right side of my body, and we ended up having to go to the ER. And I'll just make this part of the story short. I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, which people call MS. And MS is a very interesting chronic disease because it does not hit everybody the same way. And it will affect the 3 parts of your body: your mental, emotional, your physical, and your cognitive. So it's like body, mind, spirit.
Oh, hello, back off.
I know, right?
Wow.
And in each column are 10 plus symptoms that go with that particular column.
Okay.
And I had 5 plus to 10 in each column.
What was life like those first years of after your diagnosis?
It sucked. um,
You can
I
say
hope,
it.
okay. It was challenging, and if I cry, it's just part of it.
I would cry. I would.
Yeah, I cried a lot. It was hard, one, because I went from being very active and running around building fairy houses with my daughter in the woods to running and, catching leaves as they're falling from the trees with her, picking her up, swinging her around. I went from that to a 360 of flat on my back.
Wow.
And at that time, because I was in when the disease is active, when the immune system is attacking the brain cells, that's when all of the symptoms from the past and the new symptoms that you're getting from this attack explode. And I was in so much pain, I couldn't have anybody touch me.
Oh,
And so for her, it was so hard to understand because she couldn't snuggle with her mama.
mm,
And then, there was that guilt that I was, letting the family down. And
sure. That's instinctual, that snuggle with mom.
right. So we had to come up with some really unique ways to move through that, different ways to play together. And sometimes she just had to shut the door.
And you're in your 30s when this is going on?
Yeah. I'm in my late 30s.
So
Yeah.
young. How long did that stage of it last?
It lasted for a good year, 2 years before I completely got to some new norm where I could function without assistance. And you can make some great money with 2 salaries in Alaska, but it is very difficult with 1 salary in education. And I had to resign from a job that was my dream job. I was, one of the big things I was doing, I was working for a great district, the Kenai district, and I was helping design an online environmental science class for the Alaska Department of Education. And I had to resign because, if we go back to one of those columns, the cognitive side, it would usually take me 5 minutes to send an email about cell mitosis, and the student would get it. And so I was doing that. When I went back after like 2 weeks of leave, I was typing away. It's like, oh yeah, I'm doing great. I looked down at the clock, Nancy, and 3 hours had passed. And I had 4 paragraphs of just nonsense. I mean, some of it made sense, but some of it didn't. I mean, it didn't really make sense. I mean, you could recognize words, but. And so I knew then that I had to resign.
Wow.
And that was very, very difficult. So I can't think, I can't communicate, I can't teach, I can't walk hardly. I'm in pain all the time. A bunch of other stuff. I won't go into them. And so, we had to go home. We had to leave. Luckily, our house did not sell where we were staying, where we were living. And we just moved back into the house. Adrian got his old job back, and and one good thing, I like to try and see the positives. I try to be a glass half full,
Yeah.
is that, Adrian had to finish his contract in Alaska. So my dad was so generous and said, just come live with me. And he lives on the coast in Georgia, and it's such a healing, beautiful place. He said, come live with me. I will help take care of Sophia. I'll take care of you. And I was like, Daddy, I can't ask you to do that. And he's like, let me ask you a question. He goes, if Sophia was really sick, would you have her come live with you? I'm like, well, of course. And he goes,
hello.
hello. I'm like, okay, daddy. So we moved in and lived with my dad for about 5 months. And it was such a special time for Sophia because she is so close to her papa now. And he and I kind of understood each other a bit more. And so it was a good healing experience to be able to walk on the beach and, things like that. So we were very blessed. But then it was 10 years of living in a town that we no longer live in, of just trying to figure out what my new norm was. And some days were great. And I would get to do some things in the garden. And then some days I was in the bed.
Throughout this long stretch, was the Camino on your radar at all? Or was it, no, the only thing you're focused on is living and staying functioning?
Surviving, yes. I would say the first 6 or 7 years, I was surviving. And then somebody would say something about it, because it became much more well known when the Way came out and things like that. And I had a friend that I heard about that was going and doing trips with kids not kids, but college students.
College students, sure. Yeah.
And I got so jealous. I was so freaking jealous. I'm totally admitting it. And part of that ego part of ourselves for me was like, no, that's my thing. I knew about it so many years ago. And see, here's the thing. The September I got diagnosed, we had already planned for me to do it that next summer.
Oh, okay.
And Adrian and Sophia were going to come and meet me because we had a good stretch of time during our work period in the summer. Mm-hmm. And so, we were so close to buying those tickets. And the universe was like, well, maybe you should wait just a little bit.
Go wait a little bit.
So the dream just got cut off.
Okay.
At the knees. So, and I didn't even like to talk about it because I was like, I'm never going to be able to do that. Why are we talking about it? And my husband, who is so beautiful and such an amazing man, and I'm so blessed to have him in my life, he would say something because he thought he was trying to make me feel better. Well, yeah, well, maybe we can, maybe you could do it, in a couple of years. And I'm like, there's no way in hell I'm going to be able to do this. So it was really difficult for me to even talk about it.
Sure. What was your prognosis at that time? What were they telling you to expect?
When I was diagnosed with relapsing, remitting multiple sclerosis. And so what that means is that the disease activity goes like a roller coaster.
Up and down and up and down.
Up and down, right? So when the disease is active, the immune system is attacking the cells, the brain cells, the myelin around the cell sheath. And when that myelin is attacked and disintegrated, think of your headphone wire that you wear when if you have headphones with wires or a cord you plug into the socket. You've got all those pieces of metal that are the conduit for that energy to get through. The myelin sheath is the plastic coating around those pieces of metal.
Okay.
And when that myelin sheath is attacked and dies, basically, and it can never be replaced. Like once it's gone, it's gone.
Okay.
That electric current that is always shooting through your brain cells to help you do everything from talking to walking, that signal gets interrupted. And when you get that symptom, so let's say there's a group of cells that are responsible for walking, and the immune system goes in and attacks the myelin sheath of those cells. So now your walking is going to be slower. You may have what they call a drop foot, which you pick up your leg, but the lower part of your leg isn't getting the signal.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of flops onto the floor.
Okay.
And so I had that, and there were times when I couldn't even walk. And you're really, really fatigued because your body is working overtime to compensate for all of those things that are not working.
So not an ideal situation for walking 4 to 6 hours a day for 30 to 60 days in a row.
Mm-mm.
Okay. So what you just described, I can see why the Camino dream would just drift off and you would feel like you had to give it up.
Yes.
But you're going. So what happened?
A miracle.
I love miracles.
Yes, me too. The divine saying, okay, Nysie, it's time. I got on 2 new medications for the MS, and it was a game changer. And all of a sudden, I realized I had energy. I could get up, brush my teeth, make my breakfast, get dressed. Because, Nancy, sometimes it was so exhausting just to get dressed. There would be days I would stay in my pajamas. And there were times where a whole month would go by and I hadn't left the house yet. Because I couldn't
do it.
And so anyhow, so my energy changed, and I could drive by myself, go take a walk, and drive home. That was huge. And then on my birthday this past summer, for the first time in 10 years, I hiked by myself, which I used to trail run by myself all the time. And now I could do something by myself again.
To go from that full life that you had, independent, doing what you want, not even having to think about it. And hello, how many people am I describing? We don't think about it. We just get up, we brush our teeth, we shower, we get dressed. Okay, now we're ready. Let's go and go for a walk, go to work, drive here, shop, all of that. To not be able to do that, have that all taken away from you, and then to get that back, what's that like?
Well, it's kind of surreal. And I am so grateful. I think when I was doing that hike, it was only for like 2 miles, which is to be able to drive,
huge,
walk 2 miles by myself, get in the car and drive home, and then cook some dinner.
I wish people could see your face right now. I wish people could see how radiant your face is as you talk about that being your reality now.
Yes. And I think what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to just embrace it and not take it for granted, because it could be fleeting in the scope of a lifetime. But that's okay, because I've come to realize that for me, quality is better than quantity. And so if I have a year of amazing days where I can follow my dream, and even if I don't complete it, it's okay, because I tried, and I feel blessed. I feel grateful. And I'm also so blessed with an amazing family and an amazing friend group and community. Everyone is so supportive. And I don't think I realized how supportive people were until, in the last several months. And it's just blown me away. It's so humbling. I have some beautiful friends, and my daughter she goes to this amazing school, and she has this amazing, this really unique ceremony that happens the end of her junior year, which I didn't know about. And she was telling me about it. I'm like, oh, well, that's before March, right? And she's like, no, it's in May. And I'm like, oh, Sophia. And we both realized that I'm supposed to be on the Camino. And I had all of these emotions running through my head. And it's almost like the universe, the divine, is testing me to see how committed I am. Because when you ask that question, and I know we'll get to it later, but what have been some challenges or frustrations? Well, I feel like there's been these little roadblocks. Like, okay, how
badly do you want it?
How badly do you want it? But she was great. She goes, you know what? It's okay, Mom. So I have two of my very best friends who are like aunts to her that are going to go to the ceremony and be there for her and for me.
I love it. I want to remind you of what you said a few minutes ago about what your initial perception of the Camino was way, way back when you first heard about it, that sense of community. And you have that community around you. And for many of us, big things don't happen in our lives unless we are supported by others. We may go walk the Camino alone, but we didn't get there alone.
There's no way I could have done it without the people around me. Not only maybe for physical things, but emotional and mental, and being okay with the fact that mom and mom / my wife is going to be away for 3 months.
That's no small thing.
Yeah.
That's no small thing. We start to discover how much we need each other, how much we rely on each other, how much we enjoy each other, and how much a part of our day our people are.
Yep. And I think that's going to be one of my challenges, because I now, at this moment in time, not only do I want to do the Camino because of the things that I shared earlier, but it takes on a different meaning now.
What's that meaning?
Well, it's definitely wanting me to experience those things, but it's also it's to prove to myself that I can do something and finish something, because I don't finish things very easily now. But even if I don't finish, I'm using the quotation marks for folks who can't see me, and get all the way to the end of the world. That's okay. Wherever I stop, wherever the point where I can't go anymore, that's where I'm supposed to be. That's where I'm supposed to stop. I'm just giving myself a very long opportunity.
You're giving yourself time on the clock.
Right, exactly.
Well, you said this a couple of minutes ago. You said you're going to go try it. And so many times people go, don't just try, do it. That's a different use of the word try. You're going to show up and you're going to give it your best shot. You're going to bring all of you, those 3 pillars of MS that you talked about, the mind, emotion, the physical, and the cognitive. You're taking all of that with you and you're going to go see what you can do.
Yep.
You're going to show up. And it's a message that I wish that everybody could embrace, we have no idea how this journey is going to go, whether you have a 30-year history with MS or if you are at this moment looking really good and healthy and strong. We don't know.
We don't know the
We
future.
don't know how it's going to go. And so the courage that it takes to show up and take those first steps, if you do that, I'm celebrating. I'm going to just celebrate that. I'm going to celebrate you.
Yes.
That is a huge accomplishment, and everything else is bonus.
Thank you for saying that. Thank you for saying it to me, because you know how you want to be that cheerleader for the people in your lives,
Sure.
but then you forget to be a cheerleader for yourself.
Yes.
And so people have to kind of, remind you. And so thank you for that. And I do want to say that I'd like to share how I have done the itinerary for the Camino.
Yes, please.
Because my friend I told you about, who took college students, now he's always been a friend of mine, but now he's like a best bud, because he's kind of been a mentor for me. And I'm going with a group. Well, I'm not going with a group, but I have an agency who put my itinerary together.
Okay.
And when she sent it to me, she goes, I know this is not what it's going to look like. We just have to have a place to start. And so I took that, and he's only done the Francis, my friend. And so he was able to help me with that section, going, you know what? You don't really need to do this part. It's okay to skip this part. And when I get to the
Meseta.
When I get to the Meseta, or when I would have gotten to the Meseta, it's going to be getting really, really hot. And that is the worst thing for MS. Hot, humid, or hot, dry. And he said there's no shade. There's no relief. And if I wouldn't have made it. It would have actually been quite dangerous.
Okay.
For me to do that section. So we went through sections to take out to where I would travel by train or travel by bus. I'm still on the Camino. I'm just traveling differently.
Great.
And I have to keep telling myself that, because I know I'm going to run into people that are like, oh, you're not a pilgrim, but whatever.
Walk on by.
And just to go back to one of the past podcasts, when you said, so tell me about that.
Yeah.
How do you feel?
What do you mean?
What do you mean? What does that mean?
What do you mean? Yeah. Where did that idea come from? Just curious.
Yeah. You really touched me there. I was like, oh, I like this person.
It's a no pass with me. It really is.
Yeah. And then I'll stop, I'll definitely walk from Saria so I can make sure I get my little certificate.
Compostela.
My Compostela.
Yeah.
But one of the big things that I am told the woman I was working with at the travel agency, in order to set myself up for success, I will take a rest day every fourth or fifth day. And she sent like what we thought would be the last one. But then there were these sections with 15 miles. And I know I got to work in kilometers, but I can't right now.
It's okay. You're doing great.
Okay, thanks. 15, 14, 13 kilometers all back to back. And I was
Those
like,
are big days.
Yeah, there's no way I can do that. I'm telling you right now. So then we had to divide like one day in half. And there may come a point where I wake up and I know I'm supposed to walk, and it's like, ooh, I don't think the legs are going to make it today. So I'll just get a taxi.
That's it.
And I'm having my bags transported
Good. I told this story recently. I don't remember where I told it. So this might be a repeat for people who have listened to recent podcast episodes. On my first Camino, I had some knee problems, which is a lifelong experience for me. And I couldn't walk stage to stage. I couldn't walk a full 20 kilometers or 25 kilometers, whatever I thought a stage was. And so what I would do is I would walk shorter stages. I'd cut it in half. Or what you're talking about, I would take a bus halfway, or I would walk halfway and then get a bus to the end of what I thought my stage should be.
Oh, that's a great idea.
What I realized was even if I can't walk, I need to be moving a stage every day. I don't know where that came from because this was 2005 and there were no other voices out there going, you have to do it this way. There was something intuitive in me that said, stay on the path and stay at this pace. And so I didn't walk the whole thing the first time, but I was able to travel through and over the entire route and then walk from Sarria to Santiago. And then the next time I went back, I walked every step. I resolved all I did was I got arch support in my shoes and that took care of my knees. Who knew?
Amen, sister.
Who knew? I mean, come on. Where's the owner's manual for the body? That's what I want to know.
Right.
Yeah.
I just went through that whole process with having to get prosthetics. That was like that was the first frustration. I was like, what? What do you mean I have a bunion? I can't have a bunion. What the heck?
You don't understand. I have MS. I already paid my toll.
Yeah. Come on, dude.
All right. Let's talk about some of your challenges and frustrations getting ready for this walk.
Okay. I wrote down your questions here. Okay. Let me find them. Okay. Right. Well, first were my feet, not having movement for 10 years, your feet and my feet were really strong beforehand. And then they just, became flippers. And so I wasn't working them and working on that strength of the arch. So the arch collapsed and and I noticed when I started training, I was like, why is my foot hurting? And I was like, I got to take care of this. I got to take care of this. And I find out I have a bunion and I get prosthetics and now that's good. So yay, challenge, overcome.
See, that's it. That's what this is about.
Yeah.
Problem solving advanced. It's not problem solving 101. It's an advanced, it's an AP, advanced placement problem solving course.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you know what AP is. Thank you. Yes.
Nieces and nephews.
Yes.
Smart nieces and nephews.
Right. I don't, sometimes I wonder where my daughter gets it from. She is, I get you. So number 2 was my body has changed, right? You get older, things start to kind of go with gravity. Bad design. Yeah. Right. And I was going to take my ice climbing pack. That was my tried and true backpack. It fit awesome and it was great. And I started training with it. And then I noticed there was a hole in the bottom of it. So I sent it back to Deuter and it was where the stays come in.
I'm sorry. Did you say ice climbing pack?
Yeah. Yes.
Oh, okay. So I just want to highlight the fact that you were previously an ice climber. Please carry on.
Okay. Not a big one, just, because we don't get a lot of ice in the South or in North Carolina. So I was like, Adrian, you got to send it back. Adrian's still in the outdoor leadership. He's a climbing guide and he still works for Outward Bound and all that sort of stuff. So he's got all the connections. So he sends it back to Deuter. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna get my pack back. Everything's gonna be fine. Started wearing it again. After 2 training hikes, the stay starts popping out again. And I was like, I can't take this with me. He's like, nope. So then we go and start trying to find a pack. I bought and returned 5 packs.
Okay.
because I couldn't figure out, it was just because my body's changed, the muscle dynamics and how they work have changed. And it, I would get backaches or it would sit too heavy. And that was a pain in the butt.
Mm-hmm.
If anybody else who's listening has gone through that, just go, yeah, I get you, sister.
I think there's a support group for backpack shoppers.
Right?
There has to be, yes. As we sit around and talk about it and complain and share our woes.
Yeah.
But did you get the pack? Do you have a
I
pack you
did.
love? Okay.
I did.
I know they want to know what you ended up with. What are you taking?
I tried Osprey and I tried, I think, another brand, but I am just a Deuter convert.
Okay.
And I just feel like they've been doing it for, I think, over 100 years. And, they were one of the first companies, I believe, don't quote me on this, that outfitted mountaineer folks.
Okay.
I think. But
let's just say that's real. Yeah.
Let's say that's real. And this was in Europe. So,
they have mountains, peaks.
They have big mountains. Yeah. And they just know their stuff.
Okay.
I feel for my body, it works good for me.
Okay.
Also went through like 3 or 4 hiking shoes.
Yes. I think that's normal.
And I'm still not sure because, I tried your test where you put your finger in the back of your shoe.
In the heel. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And, me being a hiker, why didn't I know that? That is so ingenious. Thank you for sharing.
I have to credit my source at Camino Teca shop in Pamplona, Istvan, the Hungarian pilgrim owner of Camino Teca in Pamplona. He did a tutorial with me one year.
Nice. Well, I'm going to go and visit him and say hi.
Give him hugs and kisses from you and from Nancy.
Okay, I can do that. Is he a hugger? Because I'm all about some hugs.
He hugs me, but we're friends. So you'll find out. You'll find it. So everyone listening, go find out if Istvan's a hugger.
Yeah, there we go. So for the shoes, they're more like boots, but they're not like what you called the kick-ass. Is that what you called them?
I think I called them badass hiking boots.
Badass hiking boots, right?
Yeah.
So they're not like badass hiking boots, and I can get my finger in I can get my finger in. It's a little tight at the top where the boot goes up a little bit over the heel. Mm-hmm. But once it's in the heel, or it goes up over the ankle, in the heel part, I can wiggle it around.
Yeah, you just want a little bit of room, a little bit of airspace. Yeah.
Okay, because I was like, oh my God, is this too tight? I'm being over analyzing things.
Well, we do that. The moment we hear a tip from someone who has already walked the Camino, we think that's it. That's gospel.
Yes.
Yeah. And that particular tip doesn't actually work for or help everyone. So it's even still, it's a trial and error. It's sort of a general rule. You don't want your shoes so tight that there's no movement in there, no room to wiggle.
Right.
And then the degree depends. Some people go a half size larger, some go a full size larger. We just don't know till you get out there.
Yeah. Well, I think that's what I'm going to do is I'm not going to go buy and trade or do any more shoe stuff.
Just keep walking in them, training in them. Yeah.
And then this was a big challenge for me specifically because I do have MS. I am on so many medications to help me
function.
Mm-hmm. And one of those drugs is the disease modifying drug. I only have one drug that actually, tells the immune system to chill out, and which is called a disease modifying drug. And that's one of the new drugs I went on that was changed everything. Life changing. And it helps with symptoms, which I didn't I didn't know if it was going to do that or not. And it helps with some energy, which was huge. But it's a self-injection shot. So I do that once a month. And it has to be refrigerated.
Oh, one of those. Okay.
So my husband and I were brainstorming, how am I going to get my shot while I'm over there? We're like, okay, well, we can get it shipped to the house, and then Adrian can ship it to where I'm going to be at a certain point. Well, that really wasn't going to work out because the mail people won't do that, like the post office box or the other mail carriers.
Yeah. And I'm thinking customs might have an opinion about that. Yeah.
Right. So I have got so many pieces of paper and documentation from my doctor and prescriptions and saying, I have to take these and I'm going to have to carry those pins with the Kesimpta with me. Okay, well, if you're going to do that, how are you going to keep them cool?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know who came up with this idea, but it was super just another ingenious move. And I guess they had to for folks with diabetes and their insulin that has to stay refrigerated.
Mm-hmm.
And so it looks like a thermos, and it has a top, like a regular thermos top. And you can put one of their super duper ice packs in it to put your vials or pins or what have you. But let's say, well, what if you can't refrigerate or freeze this thing again, or you have somewhere to put these pins after it's no longer the ice pack isn't working anymore? So they have designed and developed, what have you, this screw on top that is a mini refrigerator fan. And it is powered by a little battery pack that slides in on a sleeve that's attached to the thermos. And it's very quiet, and it keeps your vials refrigerated.
My goodness. What an invention. Is there a name or something that we can share with people so anyone who has the same issue can get one of these?
Yes, I would be happy to share it. It's made by the company All Family. They have several different products, and the product I'm using is called the Voyager.
Great.
And it comes with like a sling.
Okay, good. You can travel like you're tailgating, and
Yep.
that's incredible. That's incredible.
And then then I can use the battery pack too to charge my phone.
Oh, I love that. I noticed the USB connection there. Great.
Figuring out the medication and figuring out the insurance to pay in advance, getting the travel override. And
Mm-hmm.
one thing that really wears me out is processing information like that, working on the computer. And
Mm-hmm.
it just,
It's a lot. That's a lot to process.
yeah. Yeah.
Did you do any research to find out if your medications are available in pharmacies in France and Spain?
I did. And unfortunately, a lot of the medications have a lot of restrictions on them.
Okay.
From what I understand, now I probably need to look at, now I'm kind of nervous about saying anything, but from what I understand, from what I've looked at, the medications I specifically use have restrictions on them, and they can't be prescribed out of the country. Like I can't take my script from my doctor and then take it to a pharmacy,
pharmacy there.
Right, because some
Yeah.
of them are controlled substances.
Okay, got it. And I wonder, I'm just thinking in the event of an emergency or if something were to happen, if you could go to a doctor in Spain or France with your prescription and all the documentation from your doctor and get a Spanish or French script to go get it at one of their pharmacies. I'm just kind of thinking,
Oh,
I'm a contingency backup plan girl. So I
yeah.
like to kind of think about those different things is what if and then it won't happen. We'll carry the umbrella and then it won't rain.
Right.
So I'm just kind of thinking it might be worth investigating.
I've gotten everything taken care of. I'm just the traveling with it and then getting it through customs.
Mm-hmm.
That's when I was talking to the French embassy, they were like, yeah, just make sure you have, paper copies of your scripts, a letter from your doctors, why they're prescribing it, things like that. So, yeah.
I bet it will be seamless. Your arrival will be seamless. So often customs just waves you through anyway,
Mm-hmm.
especially travelers from the US just get waved right
Mm-hmm.
on through.
Okay. Well, that makes me feel good because that was kind of one of my questions that I was going to have for you because I have not traveled since we pretty much flew back from Alaska,
Wow.
and I definitely haven't traveled by myself.
Yeah. The other side of it is airport security in the US. That's where my greater concern would be, and where I would think it's more likely that that's where they're going to say, what are you putting through our little x-ray machine here? And that you
Yes.
might have to explain that. But for me, that medication would never be away from me. I would not let it out of my sight. That's just what you're doing. That's just how you're doing this. But the thing is, you're doing this.
I'm showing up.
Showing up, and look at the storyline here. Look at how many valleys you have walked through, how many raging rivers you have crossed. I mean, we can go metaphors all day long. You've been to the top of the mountain, you've been to the bottom of the valley, and you're doing it. Takes courage. Nysie,
Thank
you are
you.
one. I'm going to say it. You are a badass.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, forget the ice
Thank
climbing.
Who needs that anyway?
I mean, that looks so easy by comparison.
And besides, it's cold.
It's cold. Exactly. I don't even know what gear. Don't tell me. I don't want to know what gear I would need to do ice climb. I'm never going ice climbing. Okay.
Okay.
I have 1,000 witnesses. All right. So let's imagine. Let's jump ahead.
Okay.
And I want you to imagine you are in Le Puy-en-Velay. You have gotten yourself to your starting point. You're packed. Your luggage is being transported. You've got whatever you've got in your day pack. And you're about to take your first steps on this incredible journey from Le Puy-en-Velay through France, Saint-Jean-Pied-de-Port, walking along over the Pyrenees, taking a train or bus across the Meseta, and walking on to Santiago de Compostela and to the end of the world. You are in Le Puy. What are you thinking and feeling?
Oh, exclamation point, question mark, dot, dot, dot. Um, here we go.
Here we go.
Here we go. And I think one of my mantras will be that I am open, I am accepting, and I am trusting. I guess that little Camino magic that everybody tells you about.
Yeah, wide open for that.
So yeah, I just, here we go.
Wow. So people are going to want to run into you on the trail. What is your time frame? Around when are you starting, and around when will you be in Spain?
So the 1st of April, I'll be starting around the 1st of April in Le Puy. And I will, hold on one second. Let me think about this it's almost like for 3 months, I'll, be walking for 3 months, and half of those 3 months is in France and half of it is in Spain.
Okay.
Yeah. And I'm going to be blogging about it.
Okay.
And so, cause, one of the things that got me through these past 10 years has been my art. And so a friend of mine's helping me put a website together, which a blog will be part of it. So
Great.
I can be like, I'm going to be coming here. Anybody want to meet up?
Great. Well,
Because I like people.
I see that. I definitely want to meet up with you. I can't wait to hear how this goes. And I definitely am going to want you back on the podcast to tell us how it went and share your
I would be honored.
Yeah, that would be wonderful.
Thank you.
Nysie, we have covered so much ground, and I have just loved getting to know you. I've loved hearing your story and just bearing witness to the courage with which you are walking toward the Camino and the courage with which you will walk the Camino. So I just, hats off, standing ovation. I don't know, pick one. I just want to say thank you for spending this time with me.
Well, thank you, Nancy. It has been I'm very honored. And thank you very much.
You have quite a story. So we will look forward to hearing from you when you get back. And I am going to sit down and map out your dates onto my calendar so I can find you. I will be there leading a group from Saint-Jean-Pied-du-Port. We start walking on May 12th. So hopefully there'll be some overlap and I'll find you.
I think so.
Yeah, we'll look forward to that. All right. Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye.